Alrighty, folks, it is just about that time. Welcome. It is 4 o'clock, so out of respect for your time, because I know everybody is so busy, we are going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'd like to say to everybody is welcome. I am so happy and grateful that you've taken the time to be with us today. We are going to talk all things Common Assessment. So if you have not yet done so, please go ahead and log into your Formative account. I'll give folks a few seconds here, just in the event you have not yet done that, and then we will get right into the work. While folks are getting logged in, let me just take a moment to introduce myself to you. My name is Sarah Hall. I am a success manager here at Formative. I am a former teacher, though I would argue that once you're a teacher, you are always a teacher. You're never really a former teacher. And I'm secondary ELA certified, and I am coming to you live from Connecticut. So what are the things that we're going to be covering in our time together today? All things Common Assessment, really. So the first thing we're going to do is just build an assessment, a formative, that we're going to turn into a common assessment. We're going to use some basic question types to do that. Then we're going to look at how it is we would publish that common assessment. And then we're going to look at both assigning that common assessment and viewing the results from that common assessment. What are some things that you need to know as we're working through our time together? Well, this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted for you later, and you can access it through our training center, which is exactly the same place where you registered for this webinar initially. We'll be together for approximately 30 minutes, maybe a little less. And if you have questions, we seem to be a relatively small group today, so please feel free to put your questions in the chat. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and get right into the content. So everybody at this point should be logged into their Formative account. And since we've all likely been creating formatives right along, you should land here on your dashboard. Quick question from the chat. Do I have a demo account or a sandbox account so we can explore without affecting our classes? I do not. That's a great question. I don't have an account that I can necessarily give you to work in, but any formatives that you create as you're working with me today, you can just make them as like a test assignment. A test common assessment or a sample common assessment. And you can create it that way, just so that way there it is clear that it is not a live common assessment. Or if you would prefer to just take in the information as we go, you can certainly do that as well. It is entirely up to you, but that's a great question. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually create an assessment, a formative, if you will. For the purpose of this, I think I would assume that most of us have already done this. So we're just going to make something really basic so that we can walk our way through this entire process from start to finish. So you're going to click to create a new formative, which obviously drops you at the screen where you create any new formative that you would do, whether it's a common assessment or not. I like to say this, and I do say this every time, the first thing we should always get in the habit of doing is titling our formatives, simply because it's never fun to walk away and have 100 untitled formatives in our dashboard, because you can never really, it's difficult to find then what you're working on. So today, I'm just going to label it for our Common Assessment webinar, and then we're going to get right into adding our questions. So the first question type I'm going to do is I'm going to make a multiple choice question. Again, the purpose of this is not necessarily to walk you through creating like advanced question types, but more so you can see the process to making this common assessment. So I'm, of course, going to add some answer options, because if you want to save time, the best and most efficient way to do this is to utilize our answer key. So my first question that I'm adding here is which one of these is an invertebrate? And then I'm going to mark my answer key. I will add my next question, which, let's see, what do I want to do here? I am going to do a resequence question. And here's what I'm going to ask my students to do. I want them to place the steps of the scientific method in the correct order. And in this question type, simply you are making your answer key simply by placing the answer options in the correct order. Okay, so there is no actual marking of an answer key in this one. You're just going to go ahead and put whatever the answers are in order. And for this one, I'm going to toggle on partial credit because I want my students to get credit, even if they don't get the process 100% correct. Let's now create a new question. I'm going to do a true or false question. And this, I'm going to ask my students to just mark this statement true or false. I have used and created / assigned a common assessment in Formative. So for this, there isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer. But what I like to do is, especially with true or false questions, is I like to mark the correct answer as true, because what that does when I'm creating, when I'm looking at my results, is it'll make all my positive responses green and it'll make all my negative responses red. So I will have a quick glance to see which of my students or which of my people that I'm working with have used common assessments and which ones have not. I'm not going to actually have to read answers. So that's a nice little tip or trick for using true or false responses. And then the last question that I want to do for this common assessment is going to be a free response question. Maybe this one is just use the space to ask questions or share how you're feeling about Formative. Of course, as well with this one, there's no right or wrong answer. So I'm not going to necessarily mark the answer key. And for the purpose of what we're doing today, I'm just going to leave it at that so that we can move into, at this point, how do we then publish this as a common assessment? So when you've created your Formative, and again, for a common assessment, it is no different in terms of creating it than it is creating any other Formative. There's actually two places that you can publish it as a common assessment. You can go either, if you're in your edit screen, to the triple dot menu, and you can go down to share, and then start the process of publishing it as a common assessment here. Or you can do it out from the dashboard. So let's say, I think the application for doing it from the dashboard is you, in one sitting, perhaps create the common assessment, the Formative itself. And then in the next sitting, maybe it's a day later or whatever, you decide you're going to go ahead and publish that. All you would do is you would find the Formative that you created that you'd like to publish as a common assessment in your dashboard. Click the bubble, to the left. And in the bottom box that pops up here, you're going to click share. At the bottom of the box that pops up, you will have the option to publish it to the library, and you're going to click add. You would, at this point, fill out the specifics as it relates to your assessment. So it's already named. So if you want to change the name or add to the name, you can certainly do that here. If you want to add an image to this, you can do that as well. If you want to add an assessment type, like let's say I want to make this a pre-assessment. Go ahead and add that. The other thing you want to look at here is looking at who can access the formative. I'm actually going to skip the bundle because this doesn't pertain to that. But when you look at who can access the formative, okay? Formatives that you want to publish as a common assessment can only be done from your private library, okay? So you will have the options, when you pick who can access the formative, for it to be public or for it to be from your organization's private library, district library, whatever the case may be. So you're going to select your private library. For me, in this case, it's my Formative Academy library, but that would be school specific to you. Some notes about common assessments, and I like this here because it serves as a brief reminder. Only in private libraries can common assessments be published. When a common assessment is created, all teachers and students are essentially using the same formative. It is different than copying or cloning a formative. With that being said, any changes that are made by the person who created the common assessment are seen by all students and all teachers immediately. Only people who were involved in creating the common assessment can modify or change the common assessment itself. Teachers cannot modify or change the common assessment on their own. And to build on what I said before, once a common assessment is published, it cannot be republished by like making a copy or cloning it, okay? Super important, and what makes this different from just publishing to the library is you have to toggle on that you want to publish it as a common assessment. So you're going to go ahead and do that. And then, of course, you can add any of the specifics. I say can, but you should definitely be adding the specifics with regard to grade level and subject. So let's say I'm going to do this for kindergarten, even though these aren't kindergarten questions. I think that makes it easier for me to identify that this is just a sample common assessment. My subject, definitely algebra, because I think those kindergartners should be learning algebra. And then obviously your languages. Most of the time, I would assume that this would be defaulted to English, but if there's any other language that you want to specify, you can do so here. Write a description. Now, this is really important. In this field here, it says that it is optional. And most times when publishing to the library, a description is optional. In this case, with a common assessment, though, I would say that it is not. And here's the reason. Once you publish it, can you unpublish it? Hold that thought. It's a great question. I'm going to show you what happens once you go to publish it. So what's important about these the description in your common assessment is that your teachers, even though they're pulling a live copy when they go to pull it, they still have to assign it out to students, okay? And anytime a teacher is assigning, they have assigned settings, okay? And so that you need to make sure you're really clear when you're creating this common assessment. What are the assigned settings that you want your teachers to use when you are when they are assigning this out? So let me give you an example. So on here in my description, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the assigned date. Okay, this makes sure that as my teachers are looking at this, they know exactly when I want this common assessment published. And then I'm simply going to put any of the assigned settings that I want teachers to pay particular attention to. So here's what that might look like. I do not want them to schedule specific open or close times. I want them to have a time limit. After the students submit the assessment, I want them to make it hidden, or excuse me, I want the information to be hidden. I do not want return scores to show. And I do not want to show correct answers, okay? So this is very important because this will be essentially how you communicate to your teachers the assigned settings you want them to apply. At that point, you've set it up. You simply, at the bottom of the box, are going to hit publish. So to the question I just got in the chat, here is where you can either update or unpublish the common assessment once it's been published. Okay, I will keep my eye on the chat in the event anything comes in, but I do want to move on so we can take a look at some of the other, some of the ways that we assign a common assessment. So we've created our common assessment, and now it's time to grab it from the library and assign it. So at the top of your menu bar up here, you have your options. You're going to navigate to the library. I'm actually going to get rid of some of these because that was in there from when I was playing around with it. Okay, so you're going to come to your library. Common assessments are labeled as such in the library, but we all have, a finite amount of time, and we want to find these quickly and easily. So my recommendation is that you actually utilize your filters. So you're going to click on filters. You're going to click on the library, your private library. So in this case, it's me. So, excuse me, in this case, it's the Formative Academy here. And then you're also going to click on, because you only want to see the common assessments here, common assessments. Okay. Now remember, in this simulation that we're looking at here, I'm grabbing a common assessment as if I am the teacher, and I'm going to assign it out to my students. So now you have a list of all the common assessments, and you're going to identify the specific common assessment that you're looking for. In this case, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. And you'll see what I did too, is I actually searched for the one that the name that I put up there so that it would pop up, because there were a significant amount of common assessments. It's just an easy trick to go ahead and to locate specifically the one that you're looking for. But what you can see, and I'll actually scan on a different one, is that if you go over here, you can scroll over the common assessment to get a preview in the right-hand window on what this assessment actually includes. Okay. And because I want to pull this over to my dashboard, I want to show you what that looks like, not having created it, which is what this one is here. I'm going to say, yep, this is the common assessment that I want. And I'm simply going to grab it by clicking add to my formative list. Okay, I know that it's now on my dashboard in a couple of ways. One, it says go to your new formative, so you can click directly to the formative here. Or you see here, there's this little green check mark, which shows that it's been added to my dashboard. So if we go back out to our dashboard, I'm going to use our sample one here. This is here's our common assessment. It's been pulled from my dashboard. This is the other one that I pulled here, but it's been pulled from my library and now lives on my dashboard. I go ahead and click into it, and I have to assign it out to my students. I do that by clicking, let me go back so you can see that, I'm sorry. I do this by clicking up at my assign options the same way I would normally. And I select the class or classes that I want to assign this out to. I simply hit assign. And then the I would make any adjustments based on the notes that were in the that were made about how it is to be assigned out in the assign settings, and I click assign. If you, I got a question in the chat. If the common assessment is edited, those are live edits. They are seen immediately. So if I am the creator of the common assessment, just as if you are a teacher who made a formative in your classroom, and you make an edit to a live formative while your students are taking it, the changes that are made are live and instant. In that same line of thinking, okay, as the teacher who assigned your common assessment, you can view the results for that common assessment in really the same way that you would any other formative. So you just view the results and you can see it's like as students are taking it. But let's say you are the administrator of a common assessment and you want to look at your partnerships common assessments. If you are administrator on your account and you have an admin tab, this is where you're going to go to view and track your partnerships common assessments. If you are not an administrator on your account, you won't have this admin tab. So don't worry if you're not seeing it. That's totally fine and totally normal. But when you want to view them, you simply go to your admin tab. If, of course, you are an admin, right? If you're a teacher and you have teacher access, you will not have this tab. And there's this nice little category here that is just for common assessments. It makes it quick and easy to locate. So go ahead and click on that. Takes a few seconds. And then you can filter by any of the options you have up here to access the information and the reporting that you are looking for. Now, what I will note is similar to other reporting features in the platform, the date range defaults to 14 days. So oftentimes we won't have the information we're looking for within that window and people get a little nervous, but don't worry. If you click down, and I'll show you, like if I click the last 2 years, now I start to see actual information populating in my report. So once you've filtered and you have the data that you're looking for, now you're ready to click in. Let's see. Any of these are actually clickable links, clickable line items, if you will, to expand on a specific common assessment that was assigned through your partnership. So I'm going to click on this one. And now that particular common assessment opens up and I can see all the places that it was assigned. Let me close that one up so you can see it. If I go to this bottom one and I want to see this piece of particular line of data with a little bit more clarity, a little bit more specificity because I want to drill in, I simply open it up. And this functions much in the same way that a lot of our other reporting does. So you can drill into a particular student's responses. You can see how this particular student answered the questions. You can also drill in, you can get a quick visual by looking at the totals, right? Let's say there was one question where everybody got it wrong. So maybe that to me as somebody who is looking at this data, like I need to look at that question. Is it worded correctly? Is the wording funny? You know, what can I glean from this like top level information? You can also drill into a particular student's response for a particular question by clicking on that question. So if I want to understand, well, why did this student get this particular question wrong? I have the information I need to understand that better right here by simply clicking into the question for that particular student. But what's really interesting and what I like a lot about this particular feature is, let's say, for example, I did see that one question, majority of folks got it wrong. Well, I can actually click into that question up at the top here, and I can get a preview of the question, as well as an understanding of all of the answers that came in for that particular. Let me make this view smaller though. Zoom. All right, so now I can start to see all the responses that came in for this particular question, so that I can understand at a from a bird's eye view, what are the people saying? What are the students saying in this response that made them get it all wrong? Is the question worded funny, right? I'm getting that like higher level view of what my students did and how they responded to this question, so that I, as a teacher, can better understand what I can do in real time to support my students. While that's coming in, I'm actually going to paste in the chat. This is a survey from the information that's presented in today's webinar. Please take a moment to complete the survey. You can do that now while I'm answering this question, and then we will wrap it up. So take a few moments and complete the survey that was just placed in the chat while I look at this question. So I think I would agree. Probably if it's an issue with seeing too much, I would recommend that. Let me go back out here. I would recommend that they're utilizing these filters to pare down the data as much as possible. So make sure they're looking at a specific school or a specific assessment type or grade level or subject. If they're seeing too much on that screen, even go as far as to customize a date range. That will definitely help to pare down some of the information that you're getting in the reporting. With that said, folks, that is all I have for you on common assessments today. As I said before, I really appreciate you taking the time. I want to point you in the direction of how to find additional resources if you need them as you work. If you go to our Help Center, which is this little bubble in the upper right-hand corner with the question mark, you can always click that to access our Help Center with a wealth of help articles. But also you can contact Formative support, which is not a live chat necessarily, but it is a place. It's an inbox that is manned by live people to help support you in any issues or questions that you have along the way. That is all I have for you for today. So go ahead and complete that survey that I dropped in the chat. If you did not see that survey come through or you're having issues accessing it, please let me know. Otherwise, we are at time and you guys can transition out. Thank you so much for your time. I do see you are so welcome. Thank you. I do see it says this is for a specific teacher who won't have the admin part. Right, teachers are not going to have access to the admin tab for the overall reporting, so they won't have visibility to that. All right, guys, have a great afternoon, evening, depending on where you are coming to us from. Thank you so much for your time. I know you guys are busy, and I just appreciate you choosing to spend this last 30 minutes with us. Thank you so much. When you are ready and you've taken the survey, go ahead and transition out.